Unit 19, Lesson 1 is four slides long. So we are looking at evaluating and writing expressions. We just watched the intro that kind of informed us a little bit of what we're going to be doing and how we have to solve things in order. So to help us remember that, I've got our saying, which is PEMDAS. We remember the P, the E, M, D, A, S. We remember PEMDAS by saying, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. That's called an acronym. An acronym is when we use the first letter of something to help us, the first letter of a word in a saying to help us remember the order of something. So what PEMDAS really stands for is that we need to do our parentheses first, then our exponents, then multiply and divide, add and subtract. Now, multiply and divide I put on the same line because I want you to kind of think of them as married. When we're starting on the left-hand side of an equation or an expression and we're moving across, it doesn't matter which one comes first, the multiply or the divide. Or maybe it's going to be the divide and the multiply. But we have to do multiplication and division before you can do the same thing with add and subtract. And again, they're on the same line because it doesn't really matter if the subtracting comes first or the adding comes first. You do it in order, just like reading a book from left to right. So let's look over here at use what you know. You know about the orders of operation. Now you will see how using parentheses in an expression can change the value of the expression. Take a look at the problem. Maria and her friend go to a movie. At the snack stand, they each get a drink that cost $5 and a popcorn that cost $8. Marie pays for her friend. How much does Maria pay altogether? So the first thing I want you to do is think about going to the movie with a friend. You know that, and they've drawn a little picture here. You know that the soda cost $5, the popcorn cost $8. So I kind of group these two together and I think, okay, that's $13. But if I look at the ending, it says Maria pays for her friend. So again, in my head, I kind of started to think, I know what's going on here. Now, what I want us to do is go through these questions. We're going to read them and talk about them, and then I want you to answer them. You can pause the video at that point while you answer them. So what operation do you use to find the cost of a drink and a popcorn for one person? What operation? Are you going to do multiply, divide, add, subtract? One operation. Which one is it going to be? B, write an expression for the cost of a drink and a popcorn for one person. An expression does not have an equal sign. It's just what the problem part of a math sentence is. Letter C, how does the cost for two people compare to the cost for one person? D, explain how you can find the cost for two people. What do you need to do first? E, how much does Marla pay for a drink and popcorn for two people? And F, Maria thought that she could use the equation 2 times 5 plus 8 equals 18 to find the cost. Explain why she is incorrect. So at this point, pause the video, go ahead and answer those, and then turn the video back onto play because I'm going to give you the answers now. Okay, letter A. What operation do you use to find the cost of a drink and a popcorn for one person? You would use addition. Write an expression for the cost of a drink and popcorn for one person. That expression would be 5 plus 8. $5 for the soda, $8 for the popcorn. Letter C. How does the cost for two people compare to the cost for one? Well, it's doubled, or you could say 2 times as much. Explain how you can find the cost for two people. What do you need to do first? The answer is you can find the cost for one person and then you can multiply it by 2 since there are two people. Letter E, how much does Maria pay for a drink and popcorn for two people? The answer is $26. And the last one. Maria thought she could use the equation 2 times 5 plus 8 equals 18 to find the cost. She is not correct. Why not? The answer is Maria's expression says to multiply 2 drinks and then add a popcorn. And she needs to multiply 2 drinks and 2 popcorns. Next page. To evaluate an expression means to find its value. Remember, we already talked about those vocabulary. Evaluate means we're going to go ahead and answer it. So when you have an expression, it doesn't have an equal sign, but when we say go ahead and evaluate it, then you have to find the answer. To evaluate the expression 2 times 5 plus 8, you must first multiply the 2 times 5 and then add the 8. But if you wanted to add 5 and 8 and then multiply by 2, what if you wanted to add 5 plus 8 and multiply by 2? Well, you can use parentheses in the expression to tell what to do first. I'm going to go back to this slide and I'm going to go ahead and get this. I'm going to copy it and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to paste it so that we can remember we do the parentheses first. Exponents is when we do like 3 to the 3rd power. And then we multiply, divide, add, and subtract. So it says you could do the parentheses first. The P comes first in PEMDAS because we always have to do the grouping first. Parentheses are a type of a grouping symbol. Grouping symbols tell what operation to do first. And it gives us a little example right here. This is using parentheses. So if you wanted to add the 5 and the 8 together first, you would put a parentheses around them. That would be 13 times 2. Another way or another symbol for grouping is the fraction bar. And I had to stop and think, what does that mean, the fraction bar? Well, that would mean if you had a fraction such as this one where it was 3 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10 is the numerator, 10 plus 10 equals 20. You have to do the grouping. You can't do 3 plus 3 plus 4 plus 10 plus 10. You have to do like numerator and then the denominator. So just so you know, there are 2 kinds of grouping. Well, really there are more than 2 kinds of grouping, but we're going to be talking about 2 kinds of grouping. The parentheses or the fraction bar. Sometimes you'll see brackets also, and that's another kind of grouping. And brackets look like, just a second, let me kind of draw this there and put that. Brackets would be that, and then you would go a little farther, and that could be a bracket, or there's this bracket that's the same thing. So you can use parentheses, brackets, and sometimes our parentheses will be inside our brackets. So then it gets really complicated, but I believe that's more of a 7th grade standard. So you need to understand that things that are grouped together have to be done first, and that we have 2 kinds of groupings, parentheses and fraction bars. So now we're going to look at the problem on the previous page. Maria wanted to first find the cost of a drink and a popcorn for 1 person, then double it to find the cost for 2 people. Maria could write the expression as 2 times 5 plus 8, which is in parentheses, or she could turn it around and put 5 plus 8 times 2. We talked in the introduction video that commutative property means going back and forth. It doesn't matter which one you put first. You could say 3 plus 4, or you can say 4 plus 3, and you're going to get the same answer. Well, that's what's happening here. It doesn't matter which number you put first as long as you have your grouping correct. So one way to read this is to say 2 times 5 plus 8 is to say 2 times the sum. Sum means when we add something together. 2 times the sum of 5 and 8. Or you could say twice the sum of 5 and 8. You can also think of 2 times the 5.8 is adding 5 and 8 and then multiplying by 2. Now it gives you 2 examples right down here. Adding parentheses in an expression totally changes the value. This one here without any parentheses would be 2 times 5, which would be 10. And then 10 plus 8 would be 18. This one where we have the parentheses says, hey, we need to add those first. We group those together, so we got a 13, and then we multiply the 2 times the 13, and that gives us 26. Question number 1, reflect on this. What should you look for to indicate a group. What things should you look for? And how do you evaluate an expression if you see a grouping symbol? Pause the video, write your answer, and then turn it back on because I'm going to go ahead and give you the answer right away. The answer is you should look for grouping symbols such as parentheses or fraction bars. Always do the grouping first when you're trying to evaluate. Now, I kind of came up with just a real world problem because we think, why do we have to learn all this stuff? Well, in the real world, what if you went to the shoe store and the red shoes are $2 off and the blue shoes are $2 off, but pink shoes are $5 off, and you had to write an expression to know how to put that properly. So just little things I was trying to think of ahead of why you would really use this in the world. All right, now it's practice time, so let's go to the next one. I'm going to go over this example with you real quick, and then I'm going to ask you to do the worksheets. This says Isaac has 7 baseball cards. So they drew this little box right here, and it says 7. And then he has 3 times as many. So they drew 3 boxes, a 7, a 7, and a 7, because that's 3 times as many basketball cards. You can use a bar model to help you understand the relationship between numbers. You can describe the relationship in 2 ways. You can use words, what is 3 times as many as 7, or you can write an equation. Not knowing the answer equals 3 times 7. I want you to do number 1, which is exactly like this, but it's different numbers. Make sure that, or not different numbers, it's the same numbers, but they've changed something in this story problem. You are not drawing this. So go ahead and draw the bar equation, put your answer right there, do number 2, do all of these, and then coming up next is the answer key. So after you get done answering all your questions, again, you can pause the video. You don't have to turn it off, just pause it, write your answers, and then know that the next slide, the very end of this video, is going to give you the answer key so that you can check your own answers. There you go. Again, check your answers. Be honest with yourself. If you didn't get something right, look at it and see why, because you're kind of self-pacing and self-learning at this point.